Welcome back to the Tony Styles Show, where liberty is always capitalized. Lots of great editorials on TonyStyles.com. You can also sign up for my email newsletter on TonyStyles.com. Unlike other email newsletters, this one is not annoying and is something worth reading. By signing up, you're eligible for a free Tony Styles t-shirt. These shirts are also for sale on TonyStyles.com. Everything you need to know about just how screwed we really are is right there on TonyStyles.com. In just a few moments, we're going to be talking to the chairman of the Mises Institute, Lew Rockwell. He's a genius. He really is. He's arguably the most important name in the movement at this present time. You heard Jeffrey Tucker answer earlier in the show when I asked him the question about who wrote the Ron Paul newsletters. I want to ask the same thing of Lew Rockwell. Jeffrey Tucker and Lew Rockwell worked together on the Ron Paul campaigns back nearly 20 years ago. There's always been a bug in the movement that either Lew Rockwell or Jeffrey Tucker wrote the Ron Paul newsletters. Now, there were some very controversial things said in these newsletters. Look them up. I posted them on TonyStyles.com. You can look right now if you want. Take a look. Hopefully, we'll get some closure on what I consider to be one of the best kept secrets in the liberty movement. Tucker didn't really have a straight answer and avoided the question a little bit, and that's fine. I love the guy. Yeah, I'm not going to take a cheap shot at Lew or anything. I just think it's time to settle the rumors. And of course, the question isn't the center of my interview with him. When you have somebody like Lew Rockwell on your show, you want to talk about things that matter, the pressing issues in America, not ancient liberty gossip. So I want to talk to him about Syria and, of course, the shooting at the Naval Shipyard in D.C. Mr. Rockwell, thank you for being with us today. I have a lot of questions for you. I'm a big fan of everything that you do, and you're the chairman of the Mises Institute. There's a lot of things that go on there, and I'm a big fan of that, and I read a lot of things that come through that website that you have. Tell me, a lot of questions are on my mind. Most right now, because the most relevant is the gun control issue that is inevitably going to pop up and already has again because of the shooting in the D.C. area. What do you think of the stance that the administration's taking on this?
Well, I think the administration, in fact, I think we could go back a number of administrations, everything they say is wrong. I mean, either it's a lie or they're mistaken. I think that was true of George W. Bush, true of Clinton, true of George H.W. Bush. I mean, go right back. They're all.
I think you can go back. I think you can go back even further than that.
Yeah, well, I think we can. Right. We can go back to George Washington.
We really could, yeah. If you want to bring up, yeah, if you want to bring it up, yeah, absolutely.
I think the old British rule is right: never believe anything till it's been officially denied.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
So they want to grab people's guns. And the fact that at a government facility, a government employee shot people. Meanwhile, Obama is, of course, lifting the restrictions on giving guns to terrorists in Syria so we can ship the guns over there to kill men, women, children in Syria. You know, that's perfectly okay.
Oh, yeah, that's just fine. Why not? Yeah, let's go ahead and kill people. Yeah, not a big deal over there. But when it comes to here, then we might take away the guns. Why is that mindset there?
Well, from the private citizens, because I think for two reasons. One, they want to control us. Two, they're afraid of us. And if they're intending to really turn the screws, if they're concerned about coming economic troubles, about people maybe resisting some of the horrendous regulations and controls, and whether we look at the medical care or what's happening to our savings or just across the board, I think this is why the government's bought so many billions of rounds of ammunition for its domestic agents.
Yeah, that scares me a lot also. I have a question for you. The narrative that's going along with this is a lot different than the narrative that went along with the shooting in Aurora, Colorado, or the one in Newtown, Connecticut. Why is that? I have my theory. I'll tell you what my theory is ahead of time. It's because this is happening on a military base, and they don't want to make as big of a deal out of it when there's not kids involved or families involved. Do you think that's fair to say?
Well, I think that there's a slight embarrassment because, of course, this was nobody's supposed to be able to do this. They spend $1 gazillion every year on hundreds of military bases all over the world. It's not only this one in Washington, D.C. They've got guards all over the place, and yet somebody can stroll onto the base or drive on and kill people with almost impunity. So I think the fact that we're not supposed to ever look at anything wrong with the government, so they immediately want to switch the attention away from their own failures, their own errors, their own crimes, their own cover-ups, and on why people like you and me are the problem. We're the problem in this country, not the government.
Now, how does somebody walk into a military base? There's guns everywhere, and this doesn't bode. I'm going to play devil's advocate with you. Let me do that. It could be said, like people with the Aurora, Colorado shooting, if they would have allowed guns inside that theater, then somebody would have stood up and shot this guy ahead of time, and he wouldn't have gotten away with nearly as much or any killing. Now, this guy walks into a military base where there are guns and is able to still accomplish this. That doesn't bode well for the argument for less gun control.
Well, the guards have guns, but I've always found it extremely interesting, and I only realized this with the Fort Hood shooting, that American soldiers, sailors, Marines, and so forth are not allowed to have weapons on a military base. If they have weapons, they can't have ammunition in them. So just as we always used to laugh at the Soviets in the old days that they didn't trust their soldiers to have ammo in their guns. Well, the American government doesn't trust their soldiers to have ammo in their guns either. A very interesting point.
Yeah, it just seems strange to me that we have this pending war in Syria that they really want to get out there, and people don't like us. Let's face it. There's a lot of countries out there that do not like the United States, and in many cases, rightfully so. I'll give them that. There are some things that we've done that I wouldn't be very settled with if I were in a different country. Now, with that being said, why wouldn't they have ammo in their guns? It seems like it'd be the right thing to do. I mean, I've seen movies. Yeah, I guess that's all it is. But you see movies about how we're getting invaded, like Red Dawn, things like that, where we're getting invaded, and it just seems reasonable that we would have loaded weapons.
No, so it's actually hilarious that they're terrified of their own troops, and they're terrified. There were some recent regulations issued by Obama about making sure that anybody who saw something, said something, in their totalitarian phrase, who's a federal employee, if they turned out that they knew something that they should have told in the government's view, they were going to do great damage to them. So this is, I guess, the nature of a totalitarian state. Were Hitler's soldiers armed? I don't actually know, but my guess is probably not. I know the Roman emperors didn't allow anybody around them with swords. True. Except their own special guards. So the tyrants don't trust anybody. They're always worried. But we're not supposed to, as you say, focus on this particular situation because it shows government failure. He had a government security clearance. He had an honorable discharge, even though this guy obviously had many, many problems, and probably wasn't government prescribed psychiatric drugs too, although that's another thing the press won't ever discuss. Of
course, and that's what it comes down to, and that's the point that I wanted to make, is I think that it's just because this happened in a government area that they don't want to discuss it nearly as much as they do as when it was private citizens, and I thank you for being on with us. Lou Rockwell is with us right now. He is the chairman of the Mises Institute. I want to switch gears with you a little bit and talk about Syria. We were talking about it just a little bit in the previous conversation we were having just before now. With Syria, there's a lot of problems that I have with this, and my personal theory on it is that we want to go to war with Syria because we want to control who gets put into power in Syria. Do you think that's a true statement?
Well, sure. There are two remaining independent Arab countries, or rather Muslim countries in the Middle East. One is Syria, one is Iran. The U.S. wants to conquer and destroy both of them because it doesn't want anybody being independent. Also wants, control of all the oil, which it pretty much already has. But these last two independent countries, it wants to crush them.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's a territory thing also, because we want to protect Israel for some reason. And I sympathize with Israel a little bit, but at the same time, it's not always up to us, and they have a hell of an army on their own. But besides that, there's two countries that stand in between Iran and Israel, and that's Syria and Iraq. So by putting people into power in these two places, and not that we have a great track record or anything in putting people in power, but I see them seeming to think that if they are able to control who's in the leadership there, then it will help them with the whole territory war. So it's just over territory is the way I'm thinking. Of course, there's other things that go into it. Can you expand on that? And if you have any other ideas towards it?
I think it's also religion. Syria is the last secular Arab state. It's anti-jihadist, anti-Islamicist. So the U.S., which you would think would like that, of course, doesn't like it because it always wants to make trouble. This is true of all empires. The Romans had a phrase that we could translate as "make trouble and rule."
Yeah.
This is what empires do. So they want to, and it does have to do with the fact that Israel wants to destroy Iran. I mean, they want to make sure they keep control of the Golan Heights in Syria. But ever since 1999, Mr. Netanyahu has been threatening Iran with destruction, which, by the way, is a violation of international law for one country to threaten to go to war against another like that and bomb them, kill them, nuke them, and so forth. And they have, of course, the U.S. president always very much in their corner. I think they ought to mind their own business. I think we ought to mind our own business. I think people should learn to get along, not be making war, not killing people, not having vast nuclear arsenals and so forth. So it's I don't like what Obama does, but I don't think, of course, Obama is not original in this. This is the American presidency.
Yeah, that's something that people need to understand. He's not the originator of all this.
No. I mean, really, the president doesn't run the government. The president, there's a vast oligarchy of government, many, many different special interests, many interests within the government itself. The FBI hates the CIA, and the Pentagon hates them both, and go right down the list. The Army hates the Navy. They all hate each other's guts. So there's all that kind of thing going on, and the president is sort of like just a smiley face on the lapel of the oligarchy or something.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not actually running things. So we refer to the Obama administration, we pretend that Obama is running things. It's not true. It's all kinds of very special interests, the bankers, military-industrial complex. These people are much more important than Mr. Obama.
You and I could talk about this for hours on end, I'm sure. That's great. Yeah, I love the way your mind works and where we're right. You and I, we think alike. I love it. And thank you for being on the show. I have one last thing that I want to ask you before we get going. I had Jeffrey Tucker on just before you, and we had talked about something, and this is somewhat ancient history a little bit, but I still want to bring it up because there's a lot of people, and I promise if I had either one of you on the show, I'd ask about it. I want to know, were you the one that wrote the Ron Paul newsletters?
No.
No. So straight out no. There's no. Period.
Period, as I've said all along.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. Just to let some closure to it, because there's a lot of people that ask me that question. I say, yeah, if I get the guy on, I'll definitely ask that. So thank you. We can put that to rest now, and you'll never have to be asked about it ever again, hopefully.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye, Tony.
Lou Rockwell, thank you very much for being with us. Well, Lou minced no words over these Ron Paul newsletters. He must have gotten a text from Tucker telling him to watch out for the newsletter question. Lou Rockwell's website, of course, are lourockwell.com and Mises.org. I wonder if he... I wonder if they did text each other. I wonder what that text would look like. Like, Rocky, this is Tuckmaster Jeff. Styles is asking questions about the newsletters. You're listening to the Tony Styles Show. We'll be back with my weekly solution when we return. This week's weekly solution is brought to you by Contemporary Analysis. Much like I have predictive analytics to find patterns in political propaganda, Contemporary Analysis uses predictive analytics to find patterns in business data you're already collecting, then exposes those patterns to figure out what will likely happen next. Visit canworksmart.com for details. This week, I'll tackle the gun control solution for you, and it's going to be great. You're going to be surprised with what I have to say. You're listening to the Tony Styles Show.